At 7:41 p.m., I walked out of Brincor's 46th floor without raising my voice. At 9:03 a.m. the next day, 12 of their clients signed with my new firm. I wasn't trying to burn their empire down. I just offered them something better, and I was finally free to do it. The coffee in my hand had never tasted sweeter than it did that morning. Watching my phone light up with contract confirmations while their emergency meetings spiraled into chaos 46 floors above the city. My name is Claire Madsen, and I've never been one for dramatic exits. For 7 years. I'd climb the marble stairs of Brincor Advisory every morning at 6:45, coffee in hand, ready to orchestrate another day of client relationships that kept our firm at the top of Chicago's financial consulting ecosystem. At 38, I'd built something most people in this industry only dream about, a network of trust so solid that CEOs would call me before their own boards when making critical decisions. But that Friday evening in November, as I stood in the executive conference room staring at Logan Reyes, our new CEO, I knew my time at Brincor had reached its inevitable end. Not with a bang, not with screaming matches or security escorts, just a quiet refusal that would echo through their balance sheets for months to come. I need you to have the Morrison Industries restructuring proposal completely redone by Monday morning, Logan said, his Harvard-polished voice carrying that particular tone of manufactured urgency I'd grown to despise. The entire tone is wrong, too conservative. We need to show them we're hungry. I looked at the proposal on the table, 47 pages I'd personally crafted with my team over 3 weeks, incorporating every nuance of Morrison's corporate culture, every unspoken concern their CFO had shared with me over countless working dinners. It wasn't conservative. It was precisely what they needed to hear. This is the 3rd weekend in a row, I said quietly. My team has already logged over 200 hours on this project. The proposal reflects exactly what Morrison wants: stability with controlled growth. I've known David Morrison for 6 years. This is what he expects from us. Logan's smile was sharp as winter wind off Lake Michigan. That's the old Brincor talking. We're building something bigger now, more aggressive. You need to decide if you're flexible enough to be part of it. Flexible. There was that word again, the one that had been creeping into every conversation since Dominion Partners acquired us 8 months ago. Flexible meant working Sundays. Flexible meant accepting Ethan, my former assistant, who couldn't tell a balance sheet from a bed sheet, as my co-lead on accounts I'd cultivated from nothing. Flexible meant watching everything I'd built get dismantled in the name of growth hacking and market disruption. I won't ask my team to redo work that doesn't need redoing, I said, gathering my papers, and I won't lie to clients who trust us just to satisfy some arbitrary need for aggression. The silence that followed could have frozen hell. Logan leaned back in his chair. That practiced gesture of power I'd seen him rehearse when he thought no one was watching. Then perhaps Brincor isn't the right fit for you anymore, Claire. I'd expected the words, had been expecting them for weeks as I'd been systematically excluded from strategy meetings, watched my email permissions mysteriously change, found my parking spot reassigned to the basement level. They wanted me out but needed me to break first, to give them cause. This was their moment. Perhaps it isn't, I agreed, setting down my company iPad on the conference table with deliberate care. I'll send HR my formal resignation within the hour. No need. Logan's voice was too quick, too eager. We'll consider this a termination for insubordination. Security will escort you out. Insubordination. After 7 years of 80-hour weeks, of saving their biggest accounts from walking, of building relationships that transformed Brincor from a boutique firm to a powerhouse, I almost laughed. Instead, I picked up my personal phone, my leather portfolio with 7 years of handwritten notes, and my coffee mug, the one my team gave me that read, "World's Most Persistent Boss." I left everything else exactly as it was, including the sticky note on my monitor with tomorrow's call list. 12 names that Logan would soon realize were more loyal to relationships than logos. Security didn't arrive. They knew better. Tom from the front desk just nodded sadly as I handed over my keycard. "Going to miss you, Ms. Madsen," he said quietly. "You'll still see me around. Tom, I replied, meaning every word. At 7:41 p.m., I stepped out of that 46th floor office into a November evening that felt like the first day of spring. My phone was already buzzing. David Morrison had seen my status update on LinkedIn. Exploring new opportunities, posted exactly 3 minutes after I'd left the building. His text was simple. "Whatever you're planning, I'm interested." I smiled, really smiled. For the first time in months, Logan Reyes thought he'd won by pushing me out. He had no idea he'd just set me free to play a game where I'd written all the rules. By the time I reached my car, 3 more clients had texted. The revolution wouldn't be loud. It would be devastating in its silence. 7 years. That's how long it took to build something that mattered at Brinkor Advisory. Not the firm itself that had existed since 1987, a respectable but unremarkable player in Chicago's financial consulting landscape. No, what I built was different. It was trust. One conversation at a time. One kept promise after another. I still remember my first day, walking into that building as a senior analyst, fresh from my stint at a Big Four firm where I'd learned that numbers told stories, but people wrote the endings. Brinkor back then was old-school wood paneling, leather chairs that creaked with tradition, and a client list that hadn't changed much since the Clinton administration. The partners liked it that way. Stable, predictable, safe. But I saw something else. I saw relationships trapped in amber. Connections that could transform into something powerful if someone just bothered to pick up the phone and ask, "How are you really doing?" It started small. Instead of sending our standard quarterly reports to clients, I began calling them personally, not to sell anything, just to understand. Margaret Chen at Riverdale Manufacturing was struggling with succession planning, but was too proud to ask for help. James Okonkwo at Premier Logistics had brilliant ideas about supply chain innovation, but no one at Brinkor who spoke his language literally, in some cases, but more importantly, philosophically. I learned their birthdays, their kids' names, their favorite restaurants, not from some CRM system, but from listening. When David Morrison mentioned offhandedly that his daughter was applying to Northwestern, I sent her a good luck card. When Sarah Williams at Apex Development lost her husband, I didn't send flowers from the firm. I showed up at the funeral and sat quietly in the back row. My managing partner at the time, Richard Holbrook, called me into his office after 2 years. "Claire," he said, looking at my client retention numbers, "what exactly are you doing differently?" "I'm treating them like people, not portfolios," I told him. He stared at me over his reading glasses, then slowly smiled. "Keep doing it." And I did. My team grew from just me to 12 dedicated professionals who understood that in our business, trust was the only currency that mattered. We didn't just manage accounts. We became integral parts of our clients' decision-making processes. When Morrison Industries faced a hostile takeover attempt in 2019, David called me before his own CFO. When Riverdale Manufacturing needed to navigate pandemic pivots, Margaret trusted us with information she hadn't even shared with her board. The numbers followed the relationships. My division went from managing 20 B2B accounts worth $50 million in annual contracts to over 110 accounts worth $500 million. But more than that, we had something rare in this industry, clients who wouldn't take meetings with competitors, who renewed contracts without negotiation, who referred us to their peers not because of our performance metrics, but because we'd earned their faith. Richard used to introduce me at company meetings as the heartbeat of trust at Brinkor. It was corny, but it was true. My team had built something that couldn't be replicated by algorithms or disrupted by technology. We'd built human connections in an increasingly disconnected world. Then Dominion Partners arrived. The acquisition was announced on a Tuesday morning in March. Richard had been fighting it for months. I learned later, but the other partners saw dollar signs where he saw danger. Dominion promised to unlock Brinkor's potential, to scale our impact, to revolutionize relationship management through data-driven insights. Richard retired 2 weeks after the deal closed. "I'm too old to learn their language," he told me over whiskey at Gibson's. "But you're young enough to adapt. Maybe you can protect what we built." I tried. God knows I tried. Logan Reyes arrived like a hurricane in an Armani suit. 35 years old. Harvard MBA. A resume full of transformations and disruptions that, when you looked closer, mostly involved cutting costs and burning out talent. He spoke in PowerPoints and KPIs, saw relationships as conversion funnels, and trust as an inefficiency to be optimized. In our first all-hands meeting, he stood in front of my carefully cultivated team and declared, "The age of relationship management is over. We're entering the age of aggressive growth. Those who can't adapt to our new velocity will be left behind." I watched my team exchange glances. These were people who'd spent years learning that the secret to our success was slowing down, not speeding up. That real growth came from depth, not velocity. But I smiled and nodded, played the game, tried to translate between Logan's MBA speak and my team's human-centered approach. I thought I could be a bridge. I was wrong. The erosion was gradual at first. New reporting requirements that focused on contact frequency over relationship quality. Mandatory weekend strategy sessions that were really just pressure cookers for more aggressive sales tactics. The slow, steady replacement of experienced relationship managers with hungry kids fresh from business school who thought trust could be hacked like code. And then there was Ethan. The war for Brincor's soul wasn't fought with raised voices or dramatic confrontations. It was waged in conference rooms with passive-aggressive PowerPoints, in email chains where my name mysteriously disappeared from CC lines, in meetings scheduled during my long-standing client calls. Logan Reyes was too smart for overt hostility. He preferred death by 1,000 cuts. It started with language. Client relationships became account velocity. Trust building was rebranded as conversion optimization. My weekly team meetings, where we discussed the human stories behind our accounts, were replaced with agility scrums, focused on quick wins and low-hanging fruit. "Claire," Logan said during one particularly painful Tuesday morning meeting, "your Q3 numbers are solid, but your contact frequency is below target. The Morrison account shows only 2 touch points last week." I kept my voice level. I had dinner with David Morrison on Wednesday. We spent 3 hours discussing his succession planning. That's not captured in touch points, but it's why he's trusting us with— "One dinner equals 1 touch point," Logan interrupted, tapping his tablet. "The new model requires minimum 7 per week per major account. It's about maintaining presence." Maintaining presence. As if 20 years of relationship building could be reduced to checking boxes on a contact tracker. But the real weapon in Logan's arsenal wasn't metrics, it was Ethan Walsh. Ethan had joined my team 2 years ago, fresh from Wharton, all ambition and no intuition. I'd tried to mentor him, to teach him that our business was about listening more than talking, about patience more than pressure. He nodded in all the right places, said all the right things, and then did exactly the opposite the moment my back was turned. Logan saw in Ethan exactly what he wanted: a young, malleable soldier who'd execute the new vision without question. Suddenly, Ethan was being invited to strategy sessions I wasn't informed about. His name started appearing as co-lead on accounts I'd managed for years. Clients began receiving calls from him introducing new initiatives I'd never approved. The Morrison Industries incident was when I knew the game had changed completely. David Morrison called me on a Thursday evening, confused. "Claire, I just got off a call with someone named Ethan from your team. He's pushing for us to accelerate our expansion timeline, talking about market windows and first-mover advantages. This isn't what we discussed." I felt my stomach drop. "David, I had no idea he called you. That's not our recommendation." "I know it's not," David said gently. "That's why I'm calling you. What's going on over there?" What could I tell him? That the firm he'd trusted for a decade was being gutted from the inside. That the CEO saw his careful, considered approach to growth as a weakness to be exploited. "We're going through some transitions," I said finally, "but I promise you, my commitment to Morrison Industries hasn't changed." "I'm not worried about your commitment, Claire. I'm worried about Brincor's." So was I. The exclusions became more blatant. I'd arrived for the Monday morning leadership meeting to find it had been moved to 7:00 a.m. while I was in my standing 6:45 call with Tokyo clients. My access to the executive dashboard was revoked pending system updates that never came. Reports I'd submitted were returned with vague feedback about tone and alignment with corporate vision. The term agility threshold became Logan's favorite weapon. It was genius in its vagueness, a constantly moving target that meant whatever he needed it to mean. Not available for a Sunday presentation, below the agility threshold. Questioned a strategy that would burn out your team, lacking agility. Refused to promise a client unrealistic timelines. Definitely not agile enough for the new Brincore. I watched colleagues I'd worked with for years either transform into corporate soldiers or quietly submit resignations. Lisa from accounting, who'd always had fresh cookies on her desk and knew everyone's birthday, was replaced by an agility consultant who monitored our email response times. Tom from IT, who'd helped me recover crucial client data after a system crash, was let go for cultural misalignment after suggesting the new CRM system was too complex. My own team was fracturing. The ones who'd been with me longest tried to maintain our old standards, but they were exhausted from fighting the system. The newer hires, sensing which way the wind was blowing, started mimicking Ethan's aggressive style. During a particularly brutal Friday afternoon, I sat in my office, the one with the view of the lake I'd earned after bringing in the Morrison account, and reviewed the latest feedback on my team's performance. According to Logan's metrics, we were failing. Our velocity was too low. Our conversion rates weren't optimized. Our client satisfaction scores, the highest in the company, were dismissed as vanity metrics. I pulled up my personal notebook, the leather-bound one, where I kept real notes about real people. Margaret at Riverdale had mentioned wanting to explore sustainable packaging but was worried about costs. James at Premier Logistics was considering retirement, but hadn't found the right successor. Sarah at Apex was quietly shopping for acquisition targets, but needed discretion above all else. These weren't data points. They were relationships built on years of trust, conversations over coffee, and the understanding that business was ultimately about people making decisions that affected other people. Logan would never understand that. He saw clients as revenue streams, relationships as inefficiencies, and trust as a luxury we couldn't afford in the age of aggressive growth. That's when I made my decision. Not to fight Logan on his terms, he designed the battlefield to ensure I'd lose. Instead, I'd play a different game entirely. I started preparing for a war he didn't even know was coming. The art of strategic retreat is knowing when you're not actually retreating, you're repositioning. For 18 months, I watched Logan systematically dismantle everything we'd built at Brincore while maintaining the facade of a loyal soldier. But every slight, every exclusion, every agility threshold lecture was actually freeing me to build something better. It started with documentation. Not the official kind. Logan had already restricted my access to most client files to streamline communication channels. Instead, I began creating my own archives. Every conversation with a client, every personal detail they shared, every concern they voiced about Brincore's new direction went into a personal notebook. Not their financial data or proprietary information. I wasn't a thief. Just the human elements that Logan's systems could never capture. Margaret at Riverdale Manufacturing had been texting me directly for months, bypassing the official channels. "Claire, I don't trust this Ethan character," she wrote after he'd pitched her an aggressive expansion plan that would have leveraged her company into dangerous territory. "He doesn't listen. He just talks." James at Premier Logistics was more direct. "If you ever leave Brincore, you call me first," he said during what was supposed to be a routine quarterly review. "I'm with you, not them." These weren't solicitations. I never asked for their loyalty or suggested they should follow me anywhere, but I listened when they expressed frustration. I answered when they called my personal cell after hours, because they couldn't reach anyone else who understood their business. I maintained the relationships that Logan was systematically trying to reassign to his agility all-stars. The real preparation began 6 months before that final Friday. I knew my time was limited when Logan started copying HR on emails questioning my cultural fit. The writing wasn't just on the wall, it was in neon lights. First, I registered an LLC, Civis West Consulting. The name came to me during one of Logan's interminable Monday morning velocity meetings. While he droned on about disruption and market capture, I thought about what actually mattered: civil discourse, Western business values of handshake deals and kept promises, old-fashioned concepts that Logan would mock, but my clients still valued. I kept the LLC dormant, just a shell waiting to be activated, but I built its foundation carefully. A business bank account with my own savings as seed capital, a simple website that said nothing but "coming soon where relationships matter." A philosophy that was the antithesis of everything Logan represented. People first, process second. The delicate part was maintaining my integrity while preparing for war. I never used BrinCorp resources for personal planning. Every evening, after finishing my official work, I'd spend hours at home researching, planning, building a framework for something new. My laptop was my own. My notes were my own. My vision was entirely my own. Some might have seen the client messages as encouragement to poach. I saw them as validation that relationships couldn't be owned by a corporation. When David Morrison invited me to his daughter's graduation party, a personal invitation, not a corporate event, I went as Claire Madsen, not as a BrinCorp representative. When Sarah Williams asked my advice about her acquisition targets over coffee on a Saturday, I gave it freely, friend to friend, not consultant to client. Logan, meanwhile, was accelerating his campaign. My parking spot moved from the executive level to the basement. My name disappeared from the company directory's leadership page. Due to a technical error that took weeks to fix, client meetings were rescheduled without my knowledge, leaving me to apologize for missing appointments I'd never been told about. The masterstroke of pettiness came when he reassigned my longtime assistant, Patricia, to Ethan's team. "It's about resource optimization," he explained with that shark smile. "Ethan's taking on more responsibility with your accounts. He needs experienced support." Patricia cried in my office that day. "I can't work for him, Claire. He treats people like spreadsheet cells." "Then don't," I told her quietly. "Do what you need to do for now. But remember, this isn't forever." She looked at me with sudden understanding. "You're planning something." "I'm planning to survive," I corrected. "Whatever happens next." 3 weeks before my termination, I did something that would prove crucial. I updated my LinkedIn profile. Not dramatically, just adding "open to new opportunities" and refining my summary to emphasize relationship management and client trust. Within hours, my inbox filled with recruiters and, more importantly, notes from clients who'd noticed the change. The domain registration for civiswestconsulting.com happened at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, paid for with my personal credit card from my home computer. The operating agreement was drafted by my cousin, a lawyer in Milwaukee who had no connection to Chicago's business community. Every piece was clean, separate, unimpeachable. But the most important preparation wasn't legal or technical, it was mental. I had to accept that my time at BrinCorp was over, that the firm I'd helped build was gone, replaced by Logan's soulless money machine. I had to let go of the anger, the frustration, the sense of betrayal. Those emotions would only cloud my judgment when the moment came. Instead, I focused on what came next. Not revenge, that's a dish that consumes the cook, but redemption that was worth preparing for. The Thursday before my termination, I cleared my desk of personal items, one by one, so slowly no one noticed. The photos of client celebrations, the awards for relationship excellence, the handwritten thank you notes from CEOs whose companies we'd saved all went home in my bag, a few items each day. By that Friday afternoon, when Logan finally sprang his trap with the Morrison proposal, my office was already a shell, just like BrinCorp itself, impressive on the surface but hollow at its core. He thought he was pushing me off a cliff. He had no idea I'd already built my wings. The first message arrived before I'd even reached my car. David Morrison's text cut straight through the November cold. "Is it true you're free now?" Word travels fast in Chicago's financial district, but this was something else. I'd updated my LinkedIn status exactly 3 minutes after walking out of Brincor's building, a simple change from Senior VP Client Relations at Brincor Advisory to exploring new opportunities. No drama, no bridge-burning manifesto, just truth. By the time I'd driven 3 blocks, my phone was vibrating constantly. I pulled into a Starbucks parking lot to read the messages flooding in. 8 to 12 p.m. David Morrison. Is it true you're free now? 8:17. Margaret Chen from Riverdale. Claire, please tell me you have a plan. We need to talk. 8 to 23 p.m. James Okonkwo. Just saw your update. Whatever you're doing next. Premier Logistics wants in. At 2:35 p. Sarah Williams. I need to know if I can work with you again. No intermediaries. These weren't messages of condolence or shock. They were messages of hope. I sat in my car, engine running, heat finally kicking in against the Chicago wind, and felt something I hadn't experienced in 18 months possibility. Logan thought he'd exiled me. Instead, he'd unlocked my cage. The next 90 minutes unfolded with the precision of a Swiss watch. If Swiss watches were powered by 7 years of suppressed frustration and carefully cultivated relationships. First, I activated Civis West Consulting. The dormant website went live with a simple message: authentic relationships, sustainable growth, coming December 2023. My business cards printed weeks ago and hidden in my home office were ready. The LLC operating agreement was signed and filed. In less time than one of Logan's agility scrums, I had a fully operational consulting firm. But the real magic happened at 10:14 p.m. I'd crafted a single document over the past month, refining it during sleepless nights when Logan's politics made rest impossible. Discovery Call Template V1, 6 pages, that distilled everything I'd learned about relationship-based consulting. No jargon, no velocity metrics, no agility thresholds, just a clear framework for understanding what clients actually needed versus what consultants wanted to sell them. I sent it to David Morrison with a brief note. If you're serious about exploring alternatives, this is how I'd approach understanding your real needs. No obligations, no pressure, just conversation. His response came in 43 seconds. This is exactly what we've been missing. Can you talk tomorrow? By 11 p.m., I'd sent the same document to 12 clients. Not a mass email, each message was personal, referencing our specific history, their unique challenges, the conversations we'd had that Brincor's new systems couldn't capture. Margaret got a note about her sustainable packaging dreams. James received thoughts on succession planning. Sarah saw ideas about discrete acquisition strategies. I wasn't selling. I was simply offering to continue conversations that Logan's Brincor had abandoned. The responses came like dominoes falling. Finally, someone who remembers we're people, not profit centers. Margaret. This is the Claire I've been missing. Let's set up time Monday. James. Can you fly to Dallas next week? Board wants to hear your approach. Sarah. By midnight, I'd moved from my car to my home office, laptop open, calendar filling with calls. But then came the message that made me laugh out loud, a bitter sound in my empty house. Patricia, my former assistant, texting from her personal phone. Ethan just asked me to find your client contact list. Says Logan wants to ensure continuity of service. Should I tell him you maintained everything in handwritten notebooks he'll never find? Tell him the truth, I replied. The contacts are all in the CRM system. What I didn't add, the relationships, the real currency of our business, lived somewhere no CRM could touch. They lived in birthday cards sent and received, in dinners where business was never discussed, in trust earned through years of keeping promises. At 2 a.m., I finally closed my laptop. 12 clients had responded. All 12 wanted to explore working with Civis West, not because I'd pitched them or promised lower rates or attacked Brincor, simply because when given the choice between Logan's aggressive growth and my people-first approach, they chose humanity. I poured myself a glass of wine. the good stuff I'd been saving for a special occasion, and stood at my window overlooking the city. Somewhere in that skyline, Logan was probably sleeping soundly, confident he'd eliminated a threat to his vision. Ethan was likely dreaming of the accounts he'd inherit, the bonuses he'd claim. They had no idea what was coming, not because I'd planned some elaborate revenge, but because they'd never understood the fundamental truth of our business clients don't hire firms. They hire people they trust. At 6:15 a.m., after 3 hours of sleep, I woke to more messages. 2 more clients had reached out overnight, but the one that mattered most came from David Morrison, sent at 5:47 a.m. Claire, board meeting and emergency session at 9 a.m. to discuss terminating Brincor contract. Can you send engagement letter for Civis West by 8:30? We want to sign before markets open. I smiled, really smiled, and started drafting contracts. The revolution had begun, and it was arriving at the speed of trust faster than any agility threshold Logan could imagine. Monday morning at Brincor Advisory started like any other until it didn't. I wasn't there to see it. Of course, I was at my kitchen table, sipping coffee that actually tasted good for once, watching my phone light up with contract confirmations. But Patricia, wonderful Patricia, gave me the play-by-play later that week. At 8:47 a.m., the first domino fell. The receptionist forwarded a call from Morrison Industries to Ethan's line. David Morrison himself, asking to speak with his account manager. Ethan, strutting with newfound authority, took the call at his desk where everyone could see his moment of triumph. Mr. Morrison, great to hear from you. I'm excited to discuss our new aggressive growth strategy for your... I'm calling to inform you that Morrison Industries is terminating its relationship with Brincor, effective immediately. David's voice carried clearly through Ethan's speakerphone. Please have your legal department contact ours regarding contract dissolution. The color drained from Ethan's face. There must be some misunderstanding. Claire's no longer... This has nothing to do with personnel changes. We've simply found a consulting partner better aligned with our values. Good day. Click. By 9:03 a.m., the avalanche was unstoppable. The CRM system, Logan's precious data-driven nerve center, began lighting up like a Christmas tree in hell. Red alerts cascaded across the dashboard, clients requesting contract terminations, refusing to renew, demanding final invoices. Riverdale Manufacturing, Premier Logistics, Apex Development. One by one, the names I'd carefully cultivated for 7 years disappeared from Brincor's active client list, not with explanations or negotiations, just cold, clinical notifications, seeking alternative consultation arrangements. Patricia said Logan's first reaction was denial. He stormed out of his office at 9:15, tablet in hand, demanding answers from the account management team. System glitch, he declared. Has to be. Run the diagnostics. But it wasn't a glitch. It was an exodus. The emergency meeting was called for 9:30. All hands, all departments, Conference Room A, the one with the glass walls where everyone could watch the disaster unfold. Logan stood at the head of the table, his Harvard-polished composure cracking like ice in spring. Someone explained to me, he said, voice deadly quiet, how we lost 12 major accounts in 18 minutes. Ethan, still shell-shocked from the Morrison call, stammered through an explanation that explained nothing. They said they were seeking alternatives. Morrison mentioned values alignment. I don't understand. Values. Logan's voice rose. We're offering them cutting-edge growth strategies, data-driven insights, market-leading innovation, and they're leaving for values. The room fell silent. Someone from Accounting Brave Soul finally spoke up. Sir, these were all Claire Madson's accounts. She had deep relationships. Relationships? Logan spat the word like profanity. She's been gone for 60 hours. How could she... He stopped, realization dawning. Pull up her LinkedIn, now. There it was on the conference room screen. My profile, updated but professional. No mention of Brincor, no bitter farewell. Just founder and principal consultant, Civis West Consulting, where relationships matter. She's poaching our clients, Logan snarled. This is corporate theft. Get legal on the phone. We're suing for breach of fiduciary duty, tortious interference, violation of non-compete. She doesn't have a non-compete, someone from HR interrupted quietly. You removed them from senior management contracts last year, said they were barriers to agility. The look on Logan's face was almost worth the 18 months of hell. By 10 a.m., the news had leaked. Patricia forwarded me the market insider alert that hit at 9:47. Breaking Brincor advisory loses 12 major clients in morning exodus. Former executive launches competing firm. The article was brief, factual, devastating. It noted the client losses represented approximately 35% of Brincor's revenue. It mentioned Civis West Consulting's launch. It quoted sources familiar with the matter, saying clients cited misalignment with Brincor's new strategic direction as the reason for departure. No drama, no accusations, just numbers that would make Dominion Partners' Monday morning very unpleasant. Logan's response was predictable. By 10:30, Brincor's PR team had issued a statement about anticipated client rotation as part of strategic transformation. They wished departing clients well and expressed confidence in their revolutionary approach to consultative services. But the phones told a different story. Patricia said the remaining account managers spent the morning fielding calls from nervous clients. Is it true about the exodus? Should we be concerned? Can we schedule a meeting to discuss our options? The shark smelled blood in the water. Meanwhile, I sat in my home office, fielding very different calls. David Morrison wanted to discuss expanding our engagement. Margaret from Riverdale had 3 referrals ready to connect. Sarah at Apex offered to host a launch event for Civis West in their Dallas headquarters. You know what the best part is? David told me during our afternoon call. When I told our board we were switching to Civis West, not one person asked about your rates or your resources or your methodology. They just said, if Claire's running it, we're in. That's when it hit me. Really hit me. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about winning. It was about proving something Logan would never understand in a world of algorithms and automation. Human connection wasn't just valuable, it was invaluable. By market close, Brincor's stock had dropped 12%. Dominion Partners issued a terse statement about reviewing strategic leadership decisions, and somewhere on the 46th floor, Logan Reyes was learning that you can't optimize your way out of a trust deficit. I raised my coffee mug, the one my team had given me, now sitting on my own desk in my own office in a silent toast. Not to Brincor's fall, but to Civis West's rise. We had work to do. I'll continue with part 7 of the story following the outline. The calls from reporters started at 10:47 a.m. Chicago Tribune, Crane's Business, Financial Times. Everyone wanted the story behind the Monday morning massacre at Brincor. My phone buzzed incessantly with unknown numbers, text messages from journalists who'd somehow found my personal cell, LinkedIn requests from people claiming to offer exclusive platforms for my narrative. I ignored them all. Instead, I sat at my dining room table, my makeshift office, until I could secure proper space and wrote individual emails to each of the 12 clients who'd chosen to trust me with their futures. Not mass communications, not templated responses, real messages to real people who'd taken a real risk. David, I typed to Morrison, thank you for your trust. I know this transition wasn't easy for your board. I promise you won't regret it. Our first priority is stabilizing your succession planning. Just as we discussed, no disruption, no aggressive pivots, just steady, thoughtful progress. Each email took time. Margaret got reassurance about maintaining confidentiality on her sustainability initiatives. James received a detailed transition timeline that respected his retirement concerns. Sarah saw a preliminary framework for the discrete acquisition support she needed. By noon, my silence was apparently driving Logan insane. Patricia texted me a photo from inside Brincor Logan in the main conference room, surrounded by lawyers, his face purple with rage as he jabbed at papers on the table. "He's demanding to sue everyone," she wrote. "You, the clients, maybe even the janitor. Legal keeps explaining you didn't violate anything. He won't listen." At 12:34 p.m., I received an email from Brincor's general counsel. Formal, threatening, exactly what you'd expect. I was accused of soliciting clients, breach of fiduciary duty, misappropriation of trade secrets. They demanded I cease all contact with former Brincor clients immediately. I forwarded it to my cousin in Milwaukee, who called me laughing. "Claire, this is desperation dressed up in legalese. You didn't take client lists, they came to you. You didn't breach any duty, they fired you. And trade secrets. Please, since when is treating people with respect proprietary information? So what do I do? Nothing. Let them pound sand. But document everything, just in case they're stupid enough to actually file." At 2 p.m. I did something that probably drove Logan even crazier. I posted on LinkedIn. Not about Brincor, not about the clients, not about the drama unfolding on the 46th floor. Just a simple message. Excited to announce that Civis West Consulting is now operational. We believe in a simple philosophy: people first, process second. In an age of automation and algorithms, we're committed to the radical idea that business is still about human connections. If you believe relationships matter more than metrics, let's talk. No mention of my former employer, no victory lap, no bridges burned, just a positive message about building something new. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Likes, shares, comments from across the industry, but buried in the avalanche of support was one comment that stood out. "Congratulations on your new venture. It's refreshing to see someone prioritize relationships over revenue. The industry needs more of this." Richard Holbrook, Brincor's retired former managing partner. That felt better than any client win. By 3 p.m., the Market Insider story had been updated with a brutal detail. 3 more Brincor clients had announced they were reviewing their consulting arrangements. The stock price continued its slide. One analyst was quoted saying, "This raises serious questions about Brincor's leadership and strategic direction. Losing 35% of revenue in a single morning isn't a client rotation, it's a vote of no confidence." Patricia risked another update. "Emergency board call happening now. Dominion Partners executives on the line. Logan's been in his office with the door closed for an hour." But I wasn't watching Brincor burn. I was building Civis West. By 4 p.m., I'd scheduled 17 calls for the week, received 4 referrals from the morning's converts, and even gotten an inquiry from one of my old team members at Brincor, quietly asking if I might need experienced help soon. The sweetest moment came at 5:47 p.m. An email from Karen Zhao, the former Riverdale Manufacturing CFO, who'd been pushed out 6 months ago for being too conservative with growth projections. She now ran her own boutique firm specializing in sustainable business practices. "Claire," she wrote, "I heard about your Monday morning miracle. I know what it's like to be forced out for having principles. My firm needs strategic consulting support, and I can't think of anyone I'd trust more. You didn't just leave the system broken. You left because they broke it. Thank you for reminding us how to build it better." She became client number 13. As evening fell over Chicago, I finally allowed myself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Not gloating, that wasn't my style. Just acknowledgement that sometimes doing the right thing and doing the profitable thing could be the same thing. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from David Morrison. "Logan called me personally, offered a 40% discount to come back. I told him Civis West could charge me double and it would still be worth it. He hung up on me." I smiled, closed my laptop, and poured a glass of wine. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: securing office space, hiring support staff, managing growth without losing the personal touch that started all this. But tonight, I'd proven something important. They could take your title, your office, your parking space, but they couldn't take the relationships you'd built with integrity. Those belonged to you and to the people who'd chosen to build them with you. In his 46th floor office, Logan was learning that the hard way. You can't algorithm your way into trust. You can't hack human connection, and you definitely can't replace 7 years of authentic relationships with aggressive growth strategies and agility thresholds. The revolution wasn't loud, but it was complete. Tuesday morning found me at Millennium Park Cafe, the small coffee shop where I'd met clients for years when Brincor's glass towers felt too cold for real conversation. My laptop was open to a business plan, but I wasn't alone anymore. Across from me sat Patricia, who'd submitted her resignation to Brincor at 7 a.m. and driven straight here. 2 weeks' notice, I asked, though I knew the answer from her smile. Logan waved it. Apparently, I'm now a security risk because of my compromised loyalties. Tom from security walked me out, but he whispered good luck when no one was looking. My phone buzzed with another contract confirmation. Client number 17. In less than 48 hours. Civis, West had gone from idea to thriving reality, but it wasn't the numbers that mattered, it was what they represented. Each signature was a relationship preserved, a trust maintained, a small rebellion against the idea that efficiency could replace empathy. You know what the ironic part is, Patricia said, stirring her coffee. Logan's probably up there right now running analytics, trying to figure out where his algorithm went wrong. He'll never understand that the answer isn't in the data. She was right. The answer was sitting in this cafe. In the text messages from clients checking on my well-being before discussing business. In the former colleagues quietly reaching out about opportunities at Civis West. It was in every handwritten note, every remembered birthday, every time I'd said, "Tell me what you really need," instead of, "Here's what we're selling." My laptop dinged with a new email. Karen's sustainable packaging initiative. She wanted to accelerate the timeline now that she had a consultant she trusted. Another ding. James from Premier Logistics, introducing me to 3 CEOs in his network. Another. Sarah at Apex, confirming our strategy session for next week. This wasn't revenge, it was revelation. At 9:15 a.m., Patricia pulled up Market Insider on her phone. You need to see this. The headline read, Dominion Partners announces leadership review at Brincor Advisory, following client exodus. The article was careful, corporate, but the message was clear. Logan's aggressive growth strategy had aggressively grown them right into crisis. Should we feel bad? Patricia asked. I thought about the 18 months of systematic dismantling. The good people pushed out. The relationships reduced to metrics. No, I said simply. We should feel responsible for building something better. By lunch, I'd signed a lease on a small office space, nothing fancy. Just 3 rooms in a building filled with startups and dreamers. The landlord, recognizing my name from the news, offered a handshake deal on the rent. Anyone who can make that kind of graceful exit is someone I trust, he said. The afternoon brought unexpected visitors. 3 members of my old team at Brincor, all carrying boxes of their personal belongings, all wearing the same mixture of exhaustion and hope I'd felt walking out that Friday night. We resigned. Maria, my former senior analyst, announced, Logan called us disloyal for maintaining client relationships outside proper channels. Apparently, remembering someone's kid's name is now a fireable offense. By 3 p.m., Civis West had grown from a company of 1 to a team of 5. Small, yes, but every person there had chosen values over stock options, relationships over rhetoric. The final email of the day came at 5:23 p.m. from an address I didn't recognize. The sender was Jennifer Walsh, Ethan's mother. Ms. Madsen, it read. You don't know me, but I've heard about you from my son for 2 years, first with admiration, then with resentment, as his new boss poisoned him against your methods. I'm writing to apologize for what he became under that influence, and to thank you. Your example this week, choosing integrity over security, has given him much to think about. Sometimes the best lessons come from the people we push away. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. Outside the coffee shop window, Chicago's financial district rushed by deals being made, ambitions being chased, metrics being optimized, but in our small corner of it, we were building something different. Civis West wasn't going to revolutionize the consulting industry. We weren't going to scale aggressively or disrupt paradigms or whatever buzzword Logan would chase next. We were simply going to do what Brincor had forgotten how to do: listen to people, solve real problems, and remember that behind every contract was a human being trying to build something meaningful. My phone showed one final message of the day. David Morrison. As succinct as ever. Board officially approved our expanded engagement with Civis West. They asked what made you different from Brincor. I told them you never forgot that business is personal. Welcome to your new beginning. Claire. I raised my coffee cup still warm, for once in a quiet toast, not to the 12 clients who'd followed me, or to Logan's downfall, or even to Civis West's promising start, but to the simple, revolutionary idea that had made it all possible. People first, process second, always. The revolution was complete. The real work could finally begin. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts about workplace dignity and standing up for your values. Your experiences matter, and I'd love to hear them.